On today's adventure, we set out into the Harquahala Valley with no real plan other than to find some scenic trails, explore whatever historic spots we come across, and find a nice place to camp out for the night and relax. And for the first time in a long time, I'm joined by a familiar face and one of my favorite people, my cousin Daniel, which means it should be a fun time. Hello everybody and welcome. Our journey begins just north of the Belmont Mountains in west central Arizona. Just south of Wickenburg and the Vulture Mine is Aguila Road, a dirt road that connects two paved but pretty rural routes through the area. The road is very well maintained and in incredible shape. While it can be used to access a few interesting places, including the Purple Pansy Mine, we would only be using it to connect to Eagle Eye Road on the other end. We truly had no goal or aiming point other than to generally explore the area around the base of Harquahala Mountain on the edge of the Hummingbird Springs wilderness area. I have explored this area several times before, but knew there were still several more old mines and places hidden out in the desert. So whatever we stumbled upon would be bonus. The main goal was just to get out and enjoy some time outdoors, catching up with each other. The miles went quickly as we headed west. The only other traffic was some gravel trucks hauling rock out from a nearby quarry. The views were nice and the weather was perfect. A few rugged hills popped up as we headed along. 20 miles from the end of the pavement, we approached our next junction at the base of Harquahala Mountain. We headed south for a few miles on the paved road. After passing the ruins of Ambrosia Mill, we eventually turned back onto dirt, following Little Horn Peak Road. The trail headed south before eventually curving back east. Conditions remained mostly easy. The road was rocky and had a few occasional washouts near runoff areas, but generally had no real obstacles. As we continued east towards Little Horn Peak, we passed several turnoffs to the plethora of mines that dot the hills in this area. In a past adventure, I visited most of these and documented the history of each, all of which have a variety of interesting ruins left behind today, so if you are interested more in the backstory and history of those, I would recommend watching that video. But in addition to those, there were still several mines further back I hadn't made it to on that trip, so today was the day to continue exploring. As we proceeded on, the trail got rougher in a few places, but generally remained well traveled. At the base of Little Horn Peak and about 4 miles from pavement, a large open pit and rock piles loomed off to our left. This was the Black Rock Mine. The road curved back north and approached the torn-up landscape. There was an overlook of the mining operation, but we opted to continue on the trail as it dropped into the pit itself. The road here was rougher and required a slower pace. While still nothing crazy, high clearance is a great idea and 4-wheel drive certainly wouldn't hurt either, although you can easily walk down the trail too. With Daniel at the helm, we slowly descended towards the bottom, where several large holes appeared. This was a very unique mine operation with a lot of entrances to look at. We parked at the dead end at the bottom and hopped out to see what there was. All in all, there were probably about 15 to 20 different openings at the bottom of the pit. Most were on the side of the sheer cliff face that had been dug out. Some were larger than others, and based on the tire tracks, it appeared some people had even parked their vehicles right inside them. Daniel took the opportunity to test out a new method of entering the mine on the uneven terrain.
Don't go all the way in.
Inside the mine, it was an interconnected maze of open areas, tunnels, and drop-offs. A large amount of light came in through the holes, but quickly tapered off the farther in we headed. There were several large open rooms and many natural rock supports left in place, a mining technique known as room and pillar for obvious reasons. The tunnels themselves generally dipped southwest, on an incline that led down deeper into the darkness. There was some evidence of timbering used, but generally the natural hard rock seemed to provide most of the support. The Black Rock, also called the Black Warrior, was a manganese-producing mine discovered in 1916. Success at first was very limited. There were many other mines also producing manganese in the area, including the Victory Mines and the Apache Mine just down the road. Ownership changed hands in the 1950s after the other mines had mostly played out. Production here at the Black Rock ramped up, shipping up to 3,000 tons of ore a month by 1957. The high-grade manganese ore, which can be seen as an oxidized purple hue on the black volcanic rocks, averaged from 30 to 35% in the ore samples. It was shipped for processing to the nearby town of Wendon. After a varied production success throughout the 1950s, the Mojave Mining and Milling Company, who operated the property at the time, seemed to do most of the visible work. They dug the open pit down 125 feet to where it sits today, and likely completed most of the room and pillar mine workings as well. In the time since, there is no record of any production occurring at the Black Rock, and it has sat abandoned. The playing out of the high-grade ore is likely the cause of its downfall. After walking around the bottom of the pit and seeing what history the Black Rock had to offer, we returned to the Jeep and turned around. While there is certainly more to explore here, most of the entrances appeared to be the same, and going in any deeper would require having more equipment. It was a quick climb out of the pit and back to the main road. While the trail technically continues past this point, we opted to head back the way we came. The drive was scenic, heading the other direction. Harquahala Mountain rose up in the distance, and a variety of rolling desert hills dominated the foreground. Not far from the Black Rock pit, we turned south down a new side trail. It was immediately narrower and rockier. It crossed a wash and got rougher, navigating a few washouts before returning to a stretch along the wash. The section was slow and go but fun, and not knowing where we were going was also fun. The trail continued to degrade as it climbed to a high point along the saddle of a hill. There was a mining claim marker and some minor evidence of digging, so we stopped to check it out. Besides this, there really wasn't much to see. Probably just some small prospect associated with one of the larger scale mines in the surrounding hills. By this point, it was 3 o'clock already, and an early and leisurely camp sounded great to both of us. We turned around and retraced our way back to Little Horn Peak Road, passing an adit in the wash on the way out. After some fun trails, we made it back to the smoother road and continued back west. It wasn't far down the trail that we pulled off at a nice open spot with a fire ring. We had nothing pre-planned, but this spot would do just fine for the night. Since the ground was already nice and flat, there was no leveling of the Jeep needed. The tent was popped open and we worked on getting the rest of base camp set up. When I went to open the rear hatch, there was a problem. The handle wasn't engaging. And while I could drag everything out the side, my large camp kitchen box needed to come out this way, or so I thought. After fighting with it for entirely way too long, we eventually surrendered, but not without putting up a valiant effort. It was on to plan B, unloading everything out the doors. And even though getting the camp box out required a master's degree in Tetris, we were eventually all set up for the night. We raced to set up my new lightweight chairs because competition makes everything more entertaining. It was still pretty early, but it was nice to be at camp and already relaxing well before the sun went down, which during this coldest time of year was just before 6. We cracked open the drinks and sat down to enjoy the view. It had been almost 4 years to the day since our last camping trip together, so it felt good to finally be back out, even if for only a quick overnighter. After a little downtime, we got the stove fired up. Today it would be our normal dinner. Steak and mashed potatoes with vegetables we forgot at home. Good to see that some things just don't change. This really is such a simple and quick meal to prepare. And it's hearty and delicious too. It was ready in no time and we sat down to eat, overlooking the Harquahala Valley as the sun continued to set. Golden hour in the desert really is such a magical time. Even amongst the big views, you can still see so much small detail come to life. Each saguaro cactus glows as it catches the last remaining bit of light. The shadows grow long and the different shades of green seem to pop just a little more. The trails and the washes are dead quiet. Beyond the rolling hills, the highest reaches of Harquahala Mountain rise up over 5,600 feet. And the historic Smithsonian Observatory at the very top can barely be made out from way down here. While super easy to get to, this ended up being a fantastic place to camp. The desert is a special place. It is rugged beauty at its finest. And we took it all in as we finished up dinner. As the sun slipped below the horizon, the chill set in. It was time to get a fire going so that we could continue to chat and hang out outside the tent. It took several attempts with many different types of kindling and techniques, but just as it got fully dark, we got it lit. After enjoying the crackle of the fire and having a couple more drinks, we eventually moved on to a game. It's called Beer Darts, and the objective is to sink a dart into the open can of your opponent. The ideal camping game. It was a rousing game that went back and forth many times. We shared some great laughs and great shots as we played next to the fire. It was anyone's game down to the end, but I ended up getting the kill shot.
Damn it!
Let's go. Let's go.
It was an absolute blast. Afterwards, we continued chatting around the fire late into the night until the campfire finally went out. We retreated to the tent and hit the hay. It was a chilly night, but overall pretty decent. We slept in quite a bit since we had been up late and our only objective for the day was to get back home. We whipped up a quick breakfast and leisurely packed up camp once we were done. Once things were packed back up and the area was nice and clean, we returned to the trail. The couple miles back to Eagle Eye Road were uneventful and easy. This trip, while pretty low-key and slow-paced, was much needed. It was great getting back out with my cousin and getting caught up. Life can get busy, but taking the time to make memories and share adventures is so important. Plus, we got to explore an area a little bit deeper and discover some more great spots. That'll be it for this one, so as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.